It was a serene afternoon when Susan, a widow at the age of 59, stood in her snug living room, anticipating the arrival of a parcel. She had been living by herself for several years, following her husband's departure from this world, and solitude had woven itself into her daily life. The days seemed to meld together, marked only by sporadic conversations with neighbors and the weekly visits from her adult children. Yet an emptiness lingered in her heart. Her existence had settled into a predictable pattern, and it appeared the zest for life had dimmed. That was until an unforeseen event turned everything around. Recently, Susan had taken to online shopping more often, acquiring books, household items, and occasionally items she had no real use for, just for the fleeting excitement of having someone at her door. She hadn't given it much thought, but on this day, when the doorbell chimed, something felt different. With her usual composed pace, she approached the door, expecting the customary brief interaction with the delivery person. However, upon opening the door, she was greeted not by the familiar middle-aged courier, but by a young man, perhaps in his early 20s. He was tall, with a slender frame, and his youthful face was illuminated by a warm smile that seemed to light up everything around him. His dark hair was a bit messy, and there was an undeniable allure in his laid-back yet confident presence. Susan was momentarily caught off guard, experiencing an unexpected flutter in her chest. "Delivery for Susan," he announced, his voice smooth with a casual tone, extending the package. Their eyes locked, and for a fleeting moment, time seemed to stretch. There was something in his gaze, a blend of curiosity and kindness, that she hadn't felt in ages. She quickly collected herself, offering a courteous smile. "Yes, that's me. Thank you," she responded, reaching for the package. As their hands touched briefly, an unusual warmth and anticipation surged through her, feelings she hadn't encountered since her youth. "Need any help with that?" he inquired, noticing her slight struggle with the weighty box. Without awaiting her reply, he stepped forward, gently relieving her of the package. Susan's heart fluttered, puzzled by this sudden act of kindness. She had always prided herself on her independence, yet in this instance, she didn't mind the assistance. "Oh, thank you," she said, slightly flustered. "You're very kind." "No problem at all," he responded, entering her home without pause to place the package on the table. "I'm Kevin, by the way." Susan smiled, still feeling the lingering effects of their brief contact. "Nice to meet you, Kevin. I appreciate your help." He lingered for a moment, seemingly undecided about leaving. An awkward silence ensued, but it wasn't unpleasant. In fact, Susan found herself wishing he would stay a bit longer. She couldn't recall the last time she felt so vividly aware of another person's presence. Something about him awakened emotions she thought were long dormant. "Is there anything else I can do for you?" Kevin asked, his tone playfully respectful. Susan felt a blush creeping onto her cheeks, a reaction she hadn't experienced in years. She laughed lightly, attempting to retain her usual poise. "No, I think I've taken enough of your time," she said, though part of her wished he would stay. Kevin smiled once more, this time with a twinkle in his eye suggesting something unspoken. "Well, if you ever need anything, you know where to find me. I do deliveries around here almost daily." And with that, he left, leaving Susan in her living room, the package now an afterthought on the table. Her mind was racing with thoughts unfamiliar to her, her heart beating in a manner that made her feel much younger. She shook her head, attempting to dispel the peculiar sensation that had emerged. "He's just a young man," she murmured to herself, trying to categorize the encounter as mere friendliness. But in the days that followed, Susan found herself thinking of Kevin more than she expected. Each time the doorbell rang, her heart would leap, hoping it was him. She started ordering things she didn't need, just for the chance to see him again. And each time he appeared, that familiar flutter in her chest returned. A week had passed since their initial encounter when Kevin returned with another delivery. This time, however, he lingered, engaging in light conversation longer than before. Susan, typically reserved, found herself sharing more with him than she had with anyone in recent memory. They discussed life, love, dreams, and the relentless march of time. Kevin, despite his youth, displayed a maturity that intrigued Susan, and she felt an undeniable attraction to him. As the weeks flowed by, their meetings became more frequent and increasingly personal. Kevin started visiting Susan even when there were no packages to deliver, just popping by to greet her or see how she was doing. Their dialogues deepened, and Susan began to anticipate his visits with an eagerness that overshadowed all else. Despite recognizing the unconventional nature of their bond, she couldn't ignore the connection they had. One day, Kevin arrived at her doorstep, empty-handed. "I've been thinking about you," he confessed, his voice low and earnest. Susan's heart fluttered. "Why?" she whispered, her voice faint. Kevin moved closer, his gaze intense, making her feel weak. "I can't quite explain it," he said, "but there's something special about you. You're unlike anyone I've met." Susan's breath hitched. She had felt unseen for so long, believing her days of romance were behind her. Yet here was Kevin, viewing her as if she were the most fascinating person on earth. Words failed her, but before she could muster a response, Kevin bridged the gap between them, his lips gently meeting hers in a tentative kiss. Initially, Susan was paralyzed by the whirlwind of thoughts about the impropriety and impossibility of it all. But then, a barrier within her broke, and she responded to the kiss, her body awakening to sensations long dormant. The kiss grew more profound, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Susan let herself be carried away by the moment. When they parted, both were gasping for air. Kevin's expression was a mix of desire and uncertainty, looking to her for a sign. "This is crazy," Susan murmured, her voice quivering with emotion. Kevin nodded, his eyes locked on hers. "Maybe it is," he conceded softly, "but it feels right." Susan's heart was torn between countless reasons this shouldn't work: the age gap, societal norms, her own apprehensions about judgment. Yet, in that instant, none of it seemed to matter. She felt alive, desired, significant. They spent the afternoon together, conversing and laughing like lifelong companions. The bond between them was palpable, and although Susan harbored reservations, the way Kevin made her feel was undeniable. He brought a passion that rekindled a spark she believed extinguished. As their relationship secretly flourished, Susan was caught between her known life and the new possibilities Kevin offered. He made her feel youthful, vibrant in ways she hadn't experienced in decades. However, the fear of societal judgment loomed. Despite this, Susan chose to continue seeing Kevin, their love intensifying with each day, facing both internal conflicts and external challenges, yet unable to deny their profound connection. It seemed as if destiny had intertwined their paths at a moment when they both needed it most. In the end, Susan understood that life was too fleeting to be governed by others' opinions. She had lived for others for so long, postponing her own joy. Now she had found someone who appreciated her true self, loving her despite the complexities. Thus, Susan decided to follow her heart, embracing this unexpected love with Kevin. It wasn't simple, and doubts occasionally surfaced, but she knew their love was genuine. Their story was one of passion, surprise, and breaking conventional norms, a testament that love transcends age, limits, and rules. It was a narrative Susan would cherish forever, a tale of a woman in her late 50s, unexpectedly finding love with a young delivery man, thereby rediscovering life's joy and excitement. Susan's journey was not merely about loving someone younger. It was about rediscovering her own value and recognizing that joy could emerge from the most unforeseen circumstances. As she gazed into Kevin's eyes, she knew their story was only beginning, far from its conclusion. If this story has touched you and you're eager for more unexpected and heartwarming tales, remember to like and subscribe to my channel.